Thank you everyone for joining us today. We are so excited to talk about our master's program. It is the 25th anniversary of the Master's in Bioethics. It started and now it's Bioethics and Medical Humanities. I am very excited to welcome our panelists. They are from all different walks in careers and in stages of their educational path. So I'll introduce myself first. I'm Dr. Leah Jeanette. I am actually a graduate of the master's program. I graduated 11 years ago, so I'm not so much a young alumni, but I will be moderating today for us. I also work in the department, so I am a senior research associate. I oversee our clinical ethics rotations. I work in administration and kind of the educational side of our department, and I love interacting with our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Reid Mckay to introduce himself and take it away, Reid.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reid. Graduated from the Bioethics and Medical Humanities program in 2018. I did my undergraduate at TCU in Fort Worth, where I was a pre-med. And now I'm at Texas A&M University as a PhD student in the Department of Sociology and the School of Public Health.
Wonderful. All right, Yanisha Cole, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yanisha Cole. I did the master's program 2018-2019. I'm currently at Drexel University College of Medicine. I'm a first-year medical student. I did my undergrad in Florida, so at Florida Atlantic University. Yeah, that's about it right now.
Wonderful. And last but not least is Kaitlynn Craig.
Hey everyone, I graduated from the master's program in 2018, so 2 years ago now. I originally did my undergraduate degree at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I was pre-med there. And I currently work alongside Leah in the Department of Bioethics as a research assistant, working with some of our faculty.
All right, and some of you may have noticed we are missing one of our panelists today. Unfortunately, Jamie Christ had something come up and so she wasn't able to join us. But I am so thankful for all of the panelists to join us. And to all the attendees, if you have questions, feel free to add them into the Q&A and we will get to them either as we're having our conversation or towards the end. So to our panelists, I want to start with talk about your decision to enroll in the program. So what kind of led you to bioethics and medical humanities and ultimately our program in particular at Case Western Reserve?
I can go real quick. Quick correction, I graduated 2019. This has been a very long 2020. Saw Yanisha's face, she was like 2018. But so as I was doing my pre-med at TCU, I started to realize that there were a lot of these kind of social issues and these more ethical issues I didn't know at the time that I was thinking in terms of ethics, that I really kind of wanted to address, that I wasn't seeing addressed in my pre-med program, in my shadowing, things like that. And so I started kind of looking around, you know, and I got into the medical sociology kind of stuff and literature and started noticing these things. And so I'm a research buff. So I got online and hashed out, and looked around and I saw the CASE program and I researched it and I was like, this sounds really amazing. And it was exactly up the line of what I had been thinking. And when I read it and I read what it was about and everything, I was like, I was able to put the words to what I had been thinking was kind of bothering me about my pre-med track, what was kind of, that internal conflict. I was like, oh, this is what I'm talking about. This is, so then I was like, well, I'm going to do this. And I went for it.
That's great. Kaitlynn or Yanisha?
So I think my path was a little different. I graduated from undergrad. I applied to medical school. I did not get in. I had a few interviews. I just didn't get in. So I was like, okay, so I don't really know what I'm going to do now. And then I was like, well, you know what? I don't actually need to be a doctor to help out in medicine. I'm going to find a better way to do it. And then I started researching master's programs. And then I found the bioethics program and I was like, wow, that looks really cool. And then I was pretty sold on being able to shadow at Cleveland Clinic because I thought that was like, okay, I'll learn something here, you know, and I was really excited about the program. And then I looked up the history and how long the program had been about and how renowned it is and how much of it's a solid program. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. Then I got there and then I did the program and then I just wanted to be a doctor again.
Kaitlynn?
Perfect. Yeah, so as I said before, I was pre-med in undergrad, took the MCATs my junior year of college, did okay, but knew it wasn't going to be enough to get me into the medical schools I wanted to, so knew I was going to have to do a gap year. I had taken a bioethics class in undergrad at my institution and absolutely fell in love with it and was like, how can I merge these two competing interests? So I think I had gotten an email from the University of Rochester, actually, in their medical humanities program. So I actually applied there first and was accepted. And I was like, you know, I probably shouldn't be putting all my eggs in one basket. What if I don't like it? So sort of on a whim, I applied to Case Western's program, knowing that they also focused on bioethics and medical humanities. Went and visited University of Rochester and honestly felt, oh goodness, what have I gotten myself into? This isn't the place for me. Came and visited Case and instantly fell in love with the faculty, with Cleveland. Cleveland is a great place to live, everyone. And just really felt like this was where I could make an impact. And so here I was. So yeah.
That's great. One of the reasons why I joined the program was because of Case's prestige in research and the School of Medicine itself. But it's always nice to hear from people who maybe aren't from Cleveland, because I am from Cleveland, so I'm a little biased. But you know, aren't from Cleveland, aren't from the Case world, to see what drew them to our program and to Case itself. So let's talk a little bit then about your time in the program. So what was your favorite memory or favorite class, something that really stands out to you during your time in the program? I mean, being that it's only a year, I mean, it's 2 semesters, it goes quick. I mean, you guys can attest to that. It feels like you're starting and the next day you're graduating. So yeah, feel free, anyone, to jump in to share their favorite memory or class, or even favorite faculty.
What if they're listening and we don't pick the right faculty, Leah?
Like go through the attendees. I had 3. I know that's like a majority of our class loads, but I had 3 really. I loved the Medicine Society Culture class that, you know, did with Dr. Anderson Fye and Dr. Sadowski. And then I loved Dr. Nopes had her kind of med anthro, like, you know, integrating you know, what this means for society. And we learned about like social construction of technology, you know, like what is, you know, like, are we what we take, you know, are pills making us into cyborgs? And I loved that. And then of course, Dr. Liu's Society, Religion, and Bioethics. I adored that class. And all those professors, I would have to say, are some of my favorites.
I can jump in. Full disclosure, my most favorite memory of this program is meeting the person that I'm currently in love with. So that full disclosure, but in terms of the actual program, it would be really hard to pick just one class. I think they're all unique in what we choose to offer, but then at the end of the program, you realize you've learned so much. It's 9 months, but goodness, you come out a totally different person. One of the classes, in addition to what Reid has talked about, really deeply impacted me was our study abroad classes. So we offer short-term study abroad classes to a variety of different places. So I went to Amsterdam with Dr. Goldenberg, and the class I was on was also with students from the University of Cincinnati. So you got to have different perspectives that way, which was really, really fascinating. And we learned how ethics is different in their culture and how they practice medicine and how they approach certain topics. So that was really cool because it was at the end of the program and I got to learn and apply what I had learned in the program throughout.
So I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this, but I'm just gonna say it. You know, Dr. Anderson Phi is my favorite person on earth. She knows it. Everyone knows it, so I'm just gonna say it because it's already known. I loved medical humanities. I felt like the discussions that we had in that class, I walked in and then my mindset completely shifted. I grew as a person. I grew in terms of like my knowledge and just how I reasoned through things. That was a very big change that I noticed. And I really like that because I mean, you know, you go to school to learn and but you don't really expect to be transformed. Like you don't expect it to be so transformative where your eyes are just open, you see things very differently. And I like that about the program in general. But the topics in medical humanities, they just fostered that growth very well for me. So I'm sorry, everyone else.
No, I could say with strong confidence that a lot of students love our program director, Dr. Anderson Phi. She has a wonderful perspective, and she really is an excellent teacher and professor. So you are not alone in that, Yanisha. That is one of the resounding things we hear consistently. So during your time in the program, was there anything that was challenging to you that you had to work through? Because grad school is not easy. A one-year program comes and goes very quickly, but it doesn't make it any easier. Is there anything you can think of that was or you had a learning curve, right, when you joined the program?
I think one of the big things, and I tell this to undergraduates that I interact with now, on different research teams and stuff like that, is, when you're in graduate school, it's so exciting because you get to explore more of kind of what you truly are interested in. But you have to become really, really good at time management. And that's a huge, I promote that all the time, is time management. Like you're given a book to read. You might have a week to read 500 pages. You don't need to read all 500 pages. Not every professor agrees with skimming, but I am a huge proponent of smart skimming because that's time management, and you need time, like when you write a paper, like when you're writing an ethics paper, write it, have time left over so that you can go back, you can look at it, you can change your ideas, you can add something, you have to get really good at spacing out your time to make sure that you're successful and that you're putting your best work forward.
I think it's really important for individuals to know that faculty are here for you. Our faculty are probably some of the most supportive and receptive individuals I have ever met in the entire world, which is why it was going to be hard to pick just one. Because honestly, if you went to any one of them, they would be immediately willing to help you. So if you have a question or, some ethical conundrum is just bothering you because you saw this in a hospital the other day, and send an email to Dr. Jeanette and say, hey, I realize we don't have preceptor for another week, but this is really bothering me and I need help. Or, hey, I'm really struggling with, your 500 pages of reading. What do I do? And so I think learning to ask for help early, and also just to get to know your faculty. They want to get to know you. And so I think that was probably one of the big pieces of advice I received prior to being in the program, and really took that to heart.
For me, one of the biggest things or biggest challenges that I had to work through was, what do I do with all of this that I now know? I think that was pretty difficult because the great thing about this master's program is you learn a little bit of everything. I mean, literally, they gave us so much work, so much information. It was a lot, but it was so comprehensive. So I think that was tough for me to decide, okay, where does this fit in my world? How do I use this best to go forward? And there's, to what Kaitlynn said, there's a lot of guidance And I had many conversations with our faculty to help me figure out, okay, now what do I do with this?
That's excellent to hear. So let's talk a little bit then about your time during the program. How did it affect, change, reinforce your career path, right? So when you entered the program, you had ideas of what you wanted to get out of this program, what your next steps might look like. But I'm curious to hear from each one of you, because you guys all have ended up in different directions from each other, but also possibly from where you originally thought you were going to be.
Yeah. When I came in, I had originally thought that I might eventually try to go for medical school to become, MD. But as I was going through all this and talking with the amazing Dr. Anderson Fye, I started to realize that I was more interested in a research path, and a PhD was more where I wanted to go. And then, of course, with my interest in society and why these things are happening, sociology and anthropology were great choices. And I had some experience in sociology. And so I was like, maybe I should do sociology. And one of the great things about, the MSc course was I was able to, my mom is Native American, and I was interested in Native American healthcare issues, but I wasn't sure how to apply it. And MSc really helped me to link bioethics with Native American experiences. And so then I was able to say, look, I want to be a medical sociologist, and I want to fight for my people, and I want to, evaluate these systems and understand how we can make them better, why they function the way that they are. I just wrote a paper here in sociology that I'm going to edit and hopefully get an R&R at least on. But it combines bioethics, Native Americans, and sociology. And, it looks at systemic racism, which, I'm very blessed, because my chair here at Texas A&M is actually the theorist that came up with, gave us systemic racism and that understanding. And he's been super supportive of that, and so it really kind of helped me to understand that I can combine all these things, because sometimes I think we get this kind of very vertical idea of academia. It's, you're in bioethics, you do bioethics. We need to be more interdisciplinary. And that's really what I learned and took away a lot from that.
Okay, so for me, so I came in, I kind of wasn't sure where I was headed, and that's okay. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I wasn't 100% sure anymore. And, when you have setbacks, sometimes you start to feel a little disappointed. You feel like maybe you can't. And so being there though, and the things that I learned, I realized that, you don't necessarily have to do one thing or the other. Like Reid was saying, things aren't vertical. They're not always black and white. And I just realized that I do love the interaction that I had, like even as I was shadowing as a bioethics student, just the underpinnings and the day in, day out of medicine, I really loved it. And so I realized that, I actually still want to pursue medicine. But interestingly now, at Drexel Med, we have a bioethics course that we have to take as part of our curriculum. And my professor directs all his questions to me, because ever since it became known that I have a master's in bioethics, he's like, well, you should be teaching this course. And so everything that he says, he's like, is that correct? And I'm like, oh goodness. But it actually comes up every day. So for the students who do end up wanting to go to medical school, it's actually something that I use all the time. It saves me a lot of time, because when my classmates don't know, what to write about, when we get presented with ethical stuff, I do it in like 5 minutes and I carry on, because I've done it before, So I feel like case definitely shaped me, but it also gave me the insight that I don't just want to be a doctor. I want to be involved with the communities that I work with, and like people like me, people from other walks of life. It really opened my eyes in terms of what type of professional I want to be.
Well, I completely did a 360. So I came into this program set on going to medical school. I had retaken the MCAT by the time I had joined the program, and went through the application cycle while in the master's program. In about February of the master's program, I was interviewing for different medical schools. And on one of the flights home, I was like, what am I doing? I really sort of had you don't want to go to medical school. So I really kind of decided that what I liked about bioethics and medicine was so much greater, and I could do so much more change not going to medical school. I really felt that and we need doctors that have ethics like Yanisha, so I'm excited for you to practice. But I also felt like there was maybe a place that I could make a bigger change without having to go all the way to medical school. Full disclosure, not a great test taker, so I knew I was going to always struggle in medical school as not having strong testing abilities. So I then had a few months to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Had many conversations with many different faculty members. Our chair, Dr. Alicio, and one of our associate professors, Dr. Hune, were instrumental in making sure that I felt comfortable. And they really both encouraged me to apply for an open position in our department as a researcher. I really wanted to get more involved in bioethics. So that's what I'm currently doing. I'm on a bunch of different grants with Dr. Goldenberg, Dr. Mckay, as well as Dr. Hune. So I'm actually still using my undergraduate degree in the biomedical sciences. We're doing research right now on human-animal chimeras, which I'm super passionate about, and creating more ethical guidelines to conduct that type of research. And then about a year ago, I actually have gone back to school while working. I'm currently pursuing a master's in science of management in healthcare. So eventually, much to hopefully the dismay of our department, I will move on and try and run a department in a hospital or something like that, and really try and make a difference that way. So I sort of did a 360. So if you do come into this program thinking one thing and totally doing something else, it's possible. Everyone in the department, again, will support you and you will figure it out. And I think this program is particularly good at helping you really figure out what you want to stand up for. So yeah.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience of coming in. I was pre-med, I was going to go to med school, and after the first semester, I thought, I don't want to go to med school. I just don't. And it was through the clinical ethics rotations that I was pretty set on, I want to be a bioethicist. I want to pursue bioethics full time. And so that's what I did. So it's always interesting to hear from every student has a different experience with how their career path is either reaffirmed or adjusted, or in Yanisha's case, it really came full circle, right? So it's always interesting to hear that. So one of our faculty is actually an attendee, Dr. Mckay, and she had a great comment that I want to read. So she said, I love how all of your choices of favorite classes or professors reflect what you actually wanted to pursue out of this program. So Reid discovered he was a sociologist, Kaitlynn connected with public health, Yanisha found medical humanities was her path back to medicine itself. I thought that was a really good summation kind of where you guys ended up. So thank you, Dr. Mckay, for that great synopsis.
We love you too, Dr. Mckay, don't worry, I promise.
So let's talk about your current, you guys have all mentioned this a little bit, but let's talk about how you're using bioethics and medical humanities in your current work. I know, Reid, you're working on some writings and you've published a little bit, and Kaitlynn, you're on grants, and Yanisha, you talked about your classes, but let's talk a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear how you're using bioethics and medical humanities.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm here at Texas A&M, being, in the sociology department and doing medical sociology, which is really exciting. And then I have a secondary kind of department or appointment, I guess you could call it, over in the School of Public Health, where I study social ecology and global health. And I've really been pushing, of course, sociology has its own ethics, but I am, I think, one of the only people in my department with actual ethics training. and, you know, actual involvement in the medical field. And so it's really exciting because I get to kind of, you know, bring this different perspective and different opinion and stuff like that. And then of course my chair, you know, is race and ethnicity, which is my kind of my main, you know, focus under him, is combining race and ethnicity into what I do. And so it ends up being Native Americans, usually social theory. Oh, sorry, I just got an email, speaking of Native Americans, asking me to comment on the ethics of some Native American stuff for the media, because I cause trouble. I'm a trouble causer here at A&M. So yeah, but you know, it's helped me to publish. You know, Dr. Liu, I published with Dr. Liu, which was amazing. I encourage you all to get to know her. She's a fantastic, fantastic woman. Yeah, just, I mean, so accomplished. She's so cool. But yeah, so, you know, I combine it all, and I try to make sure that what I do, you know, has this tone of ethics. And I think it's important because in sociology, especially, you know, so much of it doesn't include ethical discussions. Even in medical sociology, you know, it's, oh, this community is affected. This is the way they're affected. This is why they're affected. And I'm like, okay, that's great. You know, I understand Native Americans are affected in this way. I understand the Indian Health Service is awful. But what are the ethical considerations behind this? And so I'm the one in the room now that, you know, irritates everybody, because I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That sounds like maleficence to me. Or, you know, is there autonomy here? I don't think so. And so, you know, now I'm that person, but I'm really enjoying it. And it's been so important to kind of expanding my broad reach. And that's what's exciting, is I can publish all over, you know, like if you're going to academia, like I can publish all over the place. I can publish in sociology. I can get, you know, going on different like anthropology things. I can do bioethics, you know, and I reference bioethics articles in journals. And, you know, so it's really kind of affected everything that I do here. And I'm really excited about it. And I think it provides a valuable viewpoint that people don't get very often. And so I try to get it out there because I want people to know it and understand it.
That's excellent. Reid, I would also imagine that because of the pandemic, you know, that it has made your work that much more relevant.
Yes, it has been, the pandemic has been a nightmare on multiple fronts. And, you know, certainly, yeah, the Native American stuff, especially for the pandemic, has just been absolutely crazy. You know, like I said, my chair is the theorist that came up with systemic racism. So I include that in everything that I do. And that's kind of been coming up even in my bioethics writings. You know, I'm like, oh, well, they don't have autonomy because guess what? Systemic racism. So, you know, my rise to power is coming up. Our president-elect used the word systemic racism, and our vice president-elect. So my rise to power is coming.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Sounds like you're very busy, doing a lot of great work. Yanisha or Kaitlynn, whoever wants to go next.
Well, I guess we can keep it in the order. So I think I mentioned earlier that I'm kind of the resident ethicist, physician, student, something or the other at my school. Like people they kind of just know that if they say the wrong thing, I get a little look, and then I wait for everyone to say what they're gonna say, and then I come in and I just clean house, and usually it's dead silence because they're like, oh, okay. But I think that's just, you know, the training I got in foundations. Like that's what foundations was. You sat down, you hashed it out. It was going to make sense by the end of the night. There was a class, we had medical professionalism, and we had an ethics block in the class. And we went through the entire thing. And we had a whole article on Tuskegee and you know, some really entrenched ethical dilemmas. And we didn't talk about any of the ethical things in the class. And I was so furious. So I'm sitting there in the class and I'm fuming. I'm like, we're talking around everything, but nothing is actually getting said. And I'm like, by the minute I'm getting antsier and nothing's happening. And then I put my hand up and I'm like, and then I go on a 10-minute rant. And by the time I'm done, the class is almost ended and everyone's just like, okay. And then they just moved on. I was like, oh, I feel so much better now. But that's kind of, you know, how ethics is playing out for me right now. We have a lot of, Drexel is very big on community advocacy. So we have a lot of that going on. And so what winds up happening is you get a patient, you have to kind of, it's like, because of the Philadelphia being one of the poorest cities in the entire USA, it brings up a lot of ethical dilemmas, especially in pediatric care, and just like a lot of stuff that we have going on, a lot of our volunteering programs, it brings up ethical stuff all the time because it's never just black and white. And so a lot of times we have to go through that. And it's really nice to be able to, look at other people or like say, actually, it's not just what it seems, or like, and like really apply the ethical lens to it and then have it work out for the best of the person. I feel like that's what ethics taught me, is like, it's not about what I think, it's not about what you think, it's about what's best for that person based on their ethics and like what they want to accomplish. And so to be able to treat people in that way, really, like, it makes me happy because, well, everybody's happy in the end as long as the person's getting exactly what they need or, what they want. And then also I still have mentors at Case. So, they never really get rid of us. They just graduate us.
Yes, to all of the things Reid and Yanisha have said. I also think you're eventually going to get asked about it in your personal life too. Oh my goodness, my parents re-updating their advanced directives. So, honey, what do you think about this part of this? And like, should we do this? Or I know some of our friends in the program would put advanced directives in their stockings so that their families would make sure that they all had advanced directives and different things like that. And so it's very important. You'll learn all about those. I obviously, since I work in the Department of Bioethics, I use my bioethics training every day on all the different research projects that I'm on, which I am more than happy to talk more about if people are interested in. But I also have been using it in my current master's program, which is super interesting. I also fall into this idea that you're now the resident ethicist in the room and people expect you to push back on everything everyone is saying. So economics last semester, actually it's been a year now, man, he really liked to focus on just the economics of an issue and of healthcare. And I was like, yeah, but this isn't actually like the only things implying and working. It's not just supply and demand. And so, we would get in some heated discussions about that. And the pandemic has heightened all of those and how you can ethically distribute a vaccination and informing individuals on how best to do that, or how I best think it could be done versus, incentivizing it and different things like that. So I think you kind of learn to this program teaches you how to speak up and speak well. So I think it really teaches you how to form a succinct opinion, informed by facts and by ethics. As Yanisha just said, it's not about my opinion, it's about what is going to be best for the most amount of people, or if you're looking at a specific patient, what's going to be best for that specific person, and we want to do that as ethically well as possible. And so I think this program really helps you create succinct arguments and gives you a voice. And so I think if people had asked me before I started this program if I had the voice that I have now, I would say absolutely not. And so I think that's something really rewarding in this program that you don't really realize you're doing until you're done. And then you're like, oh wait, no, I have something to say and I know why I want to say it and why that's right.
That's excellent. So we have a question from one of our current students. So I think you guys would be perfect to answer this. When did each of you come to the decisions of what you were going to do after the master's program? Was it the first semester, second semester? Did you take time off? She says, I'm nervous. I still don't know exactly what I want to do.
We'll keep going in the circle. We'll keep going in the circle. For me, I did it, I hesitated because I don't want to stress anybody out. I was first semester, but I wanted to keep going. I didn't really want a gap year. Just me personally, I wanted to keep working through it. And the PhD applications were generally due the end of December, early January. So I had to move pretty quickly on them. But that was just my personal, I wanted to move. I wanted to get going into it. I talked with Dr. Anderson Fye and everything about, you know, my path and what I was thinking, you know, and she was very, very supportive and, you know, kind of helped me know, you know, to plan this thing out and, you know, get moving on it, a la the style of the hardworking Dr. Anderson Fye. So that was my experience, was first semester. But of course, you know, I've talked to a student from our bioethics department personally about, you know, her path forward. And she's, you know, I encouraged her, you know, do it on your time. This is your time. You know, don't let anybody pressure you. If you need a gap year, take a gap year, you know, get work done, whatever, you know, this is your time to decide. This is your process through life. And so, you know, just take it how you need to take it, for yourself and for your well-being.
I was very excited about that question, just because I know that people get stressed out about this stuff. I remember when Reid was doing his PhD applications, I think we went through a couple of them in the library together. I did not know first semester. As a matter of fact, by the end of first semester, the only thing I did know was that in January I was going to come back and do second semester. I had no clue where I was going to go. I mean, I had ideas of what I could have done, but I was not entirely sure. And I took a year after I did the program. I did a science master's so that I could go ahead and sort out the medical school part of it. But I didn't know that until pretty much the end of the year. I was like, okay. I think it was about April when I knew where I was going and what I was doing. Actually, yes, it was exactly April because that's when we went to Yellowstone. So yes, that's when I knew. I did not know before. And I think that sometimes it happens that way, some unsolicited advice, you know, life kind of happens sometimes. And sometimes we just have to take it the way it comes, because I think that we like to plan things. I think everyone on the Zoom is probably, you know, the type of planners that we all are. And we're very, you know, type A, we want to get it done. We want to get it done perfectly and it must be done. But sometimes life just doesn't happen that way. And so I guess my advice would be, take it slow, really figure out what you want to do and where you want to be in life. Because I think that, you know, I came in and I was like, I guess I'm not going to medical school anymore. And I pretty much wrote it off as, okay, well, I have to figure out something else to do. And in the end, it's where I wound up. But that was through me like taking time. I was very open-minded. I was looking into other things to do. But that's just how life happened.
Well, as I had shared previously, I was going to go to medical school until February of our program. So you have time if you have no idea what you want to do. I mean, I pretty much could frankly sit here and tell you, I have an idea of what I want to do and what I'm passionate about, but am I going to run a hospital in 5 years, 10 years? I don't know the answer to that, but that's what I'm passionate about. And I'm pursuing some dream. And I think that's what's most important about this program is it teaches you that life is full of possibilities and there are so many things you can do with this degree. You know, it is only a one-year master's program. You learn a whole lot, but you are going to have to go on to get, you know, some other sort of degree. This is, you can't just have a master's in bioethics, as silly as that sounds. You do need some other degrees. It is hard to find a job. We are a bridge program, as Dr. Jeanette could probably talk a little bit better about than I can. You know, I've done admissions for a year. I still can't talk great about it, but so, you know, you have time. And so I think it's so easy in this program. If you just focus on what's after, you're going to miss the present. So focus on what you have now. Focus on learning and taking it all in, having Zoom coffee dates with your faculty, since, you know, we are in a pandemic, and different things like that, and figure it out. And one day you'll open your eyes and realize you know what you want. So I think slowing down, I think if 2020 has taught us anything, slow down and take a breath and figure out what you want. And you'll get there. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, even for myself, when I was doing the program, I, you know, about halfway through the program, I was like, I want to be in bioethics, but I wasn't convinced I wanted to do a PhD at that point. And so I didn't know how. So similar to what Kaitlynn was talking about, I knew kind of what I was interested in and kind of some semblance of an idea of like what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what educational path I was going to take. And so I took a year off between my master's and starting my PhD to figure it out, and, you know, talk to people and met with different types of experts and different career paths and options to hear what does their job look like and how did they get there, and what is even the basic question of like, what does your day-to-day look like? Because we have this idea maybe of what a career looks like, but really the day in, day out is what we do for most of the time, right? So I think that can be really helpful. So I would just encourage anyone who's either in the program or thinking about doing our program, you know, to don't put pressure on yourself to have an answer, you know, right away. You know, ask for advice, ask for, you know, 20 minutes just to have a conversation and bounce ideas. I think that can be really helpful. So if anyone else of our attendees that have questions, feel free to submit in the Q&A, and we will talk about them. Oh, so all right, we have a great question. What are the hospital rotations like, and did it help you decide your career path?
I adore the hospital rotations. I think people get tired of me actually talking about it here at my program, because I'm like, well, you know, when I was at UH in Cleveland, and I had O'Mary Dwyer, who was amazing preceptor. But they're so much fun, really. And, you know, you wouldn't think that kind of like a intensive internship would be, you know, fun all the time, but I really had fun. I really enjoyed them. Time management, again, you know, you need to watch, you need to pace yourself because you need to get those hours in before, you know, the end. But there, you know, you're exposed to so much, and you have the opportunity to see so many different aspects of the hospital and meet so many different people. Like at UH, you know, the one day I spent, I think like 4 or 5 hours with the spiritual advisor in the cancer center. And she was incredible. I mean, we had a great day, you know, and I spent all day with the psychiatry department. I, you know, no interest really in psychiatry, but that was one of my favorite rotations that I did, you know. And so you go through them and you learn so much. And then I was also at the VA, and that was super interesting because you see, you know, a totally different side of healthcare, a very bureaucratized healthcare, and that was super interesting, you know. And so they're a lot of fun, and they really teach you, you know, what to do. And then for my career path, yeah, it helped me realize when I was watching the doctors and, you know, following them around, that I didn't necessarily wanted to do that, you know. And I had the opportunity to talk to the doctors. They probably were tired of me talking to them, but I would talk to them. And I even lived next door to one of them at the cancer center, one of the residents. Him and I actually lived next door to each other, and I bothered him in the elevator all the time. And, you know, they really helped me to kind of realize and conceptualize, and they talked to me about things, and they were like, you know, well, you know, they were huge encouragers as well, saying, you know, maybe you should go into research instead, you know. And so it's just, it is a great experience. And, you know, I say that as somebody who can be pretty critical of things. And I really had a great time.
I agree. So I was also at the VA, but I did first semester I was at Cleveland Clinic, and that was really eye-opening. I did not realize that hospitals were such big businesses till I got to Cleveland Clinic. And, you know, I learned that there, and you think you know a thing, and then you actually start to see the inner workings of it, and then you're like, okay, it's not exactly what I thought it was. However, there were just aspects of it. So even though you're there as a bioethics student, you do wind up doing a lot of medicine stuff in terms of like, you're there for rounds, so you have to wait till they get through all of rounds really to get to the ethical parts of it. Like it's just what happens. And for those who want to go to medical school, that helps you, like in terms of, you know, you get to see it, like, is this really what I want to do at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning? Do I really want to do this? And so that helped out a ton. I really enjoyed my rotations. However, I think that being in the NICU was just spectacular. I loved it. I loved the little signs. I loved everything about it. It was just such a hopeful place to be. And I think that it was things like that where you got to see the different, because when you go to rounds, you see almost every aspect of a medical team. And so then you can then see, okay, which one of these people do I want to live like? Who do I want to be here? And I think that helps you really shape. And I think that's what like brought me back to medicine, because it was seeing that I was like, oh, okay. So I can do both, because a lot of times when we had ethical dilemmas and we had to have family meetings at Cleveland Clinic, the doctors were present and they were very involved. It wasn't just, you know, like, oh, a sociologist or like, you know, a social worker or the bioethicist. It wasn't just one person. It definitely shows you how much of a team you're going to be a part of. And so that was really nice and I enjoyed all of them.
Yes, to all of those things. I also rotated at the clinic my second semester, and I rotated at Metro Health, which is our public hospital here in Cleveland. And Metro is a really unique hospital. And they have a burn unit, which I don't remember how many burn units there are in the country, but it's not that many. And we were the first or second burn unit in the country. So you have a wealth of knowledge in that. And so that's a really unique experience. You get to learn jail ethics because Metro Health is the hospital that contracts with our county jail here. And so that, you know, you're not ever going to be exposed to that probably anywhere else. And so you just learn such an array of information. You know, one day you could be rotating at the jail, and then the next day you're in the NICU, or you're working with a social worker in pediatrics, or you're doing an overnight in the emergency department. I did my emergency room department. Leah will know. I helped deliver a baby because they did not realize the woman was pregnant until she was there. And so usually they get whisked up to OB as soon as they realize she's pregnant. So the physician that I was shadowing had not delivered a baby in 25 years. And so he had the resident do it. And so we were running around, which was quite the thrilling story. I do remember getting to go back to Dr. Jeanette and being like, I have no ethical problems, but this is what happened today. So you never know what you're going to get. And that's kind of the joy in that, is that you're going to show up and you're going to learn a lot. And then you get to talk about it. So there are preceptors. So you have meetings once a week with the clinical ethicist preceptor at that site. And you get to hear about what everyone else saw. You know, sometimes you might have, you know, Reid went 2 days later and he saw this patient and the patient's awake now. And so now we can kind of talk about that and celebrate that joy, as well as examining all the ethical issues that we have seen or experienced, and how, you know, even if we saw an ethical issue, how did the medical team with the rest, you know, social worker, chaplain, handle it, right? So you might get to see that ethical issue resolved in real time. So those are probably one of the most unique thing about our program, and probably is what drives a lot of our students to us, and it pays off. It's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
I'll add, go ahead, Reid.
Oh no, I just want to say, you know, that, you know, yeah, it's such a positive experience, but you also get to see, you know, some of the more difficult aspects of these decisions. And, you know, the support system in our department is amazing for that. You know, your professors, your preceptors, you can talk to them about these things, you know, because there are difficult things, you know, and so, you know, yeah, we are definitely telling you about the positives, but there are hard things, you know. When I was at UH in, you know, the ICU, you know, for the little, like, you know, toddlers to teenagers, there was a baby that, you know, I mean, it was a massive ethical issue and it was really difficult. You know, it would code every night and there were just, you know, what do we do? And parents were having issues with it, and, you know, doctors were getting in arguments. You know, I mean, you won't necessarily see that craziness all the time, but, you know, there you see the good and you see the hard, and, you know, the support system is there to support you through that too as well.
So I was just going to add that this year, because of the pandemic, we had to change our rotations just a little bit. And so we're doing a lot of virtual rotations, but what's been unique about it is that instead of, you know, I've made the joke a couple of times, you know, instead of going to morning rounds and hoping you get to make eye contact with the attending, we actually invite the attending to come and do an hour talk for the students. And so they actually get to have a one one attending for the whole group, but they get to ask questions, hear about their area of healthcare, the ethical issues they face, maybe a case or two that they've struggled through. And so the switch to virtual this year has actually been really, really exciting to hear directly from and from the healthcare workers, but also the students are not bound by the sites, so they can attend any of the talks from any of the 4 hospitals in Cleveland. So Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals, the VA, or Metro Health. So it's been really exciting to kind of shift. And I think there's elements of this virtual rotations that we're going to incorporate in future years. So Yanisha, you were going to add something.
Just going to add just one small plug, if I may. So I've been, like, you know, not everywhere, but I've been to many places. And I have to say that Cleveland had the most diverse patient population I've ever seen in terms of every aspect of diversity. So whether it's race, ethnicity, language, religion, just everything, socioeconomic status. And then in terms of just like what these patients are coming in for, just like, I've never seen such a vast, that like, it was just great. And so I think that experience is definitely just, I'm saying this off my own free will. No one told me to say this, but I just had to say that because I just hadn't seen it. And while I was there, I didn't realize that was what it is. It's definitely not mundane. You see so many different things. And so I just had to say that. I promise I said that off my own free will.
No, that's excellent. I think that's a really good point. You know, it's pretty unusual to have 4 very different teaching hospitals within the same city, but also that all 4 hospitals understand the importance of bioethics and medical humanities and are committed to having it in their system, available to their patients, their medical teams, and also teaching our students. So that's really an incredible thing that we are able to offer. So I know our time is almost up. I wanted to ask our panelists just one final thing. If you had any final thoughts, something you wanted to share for our attendees, especially for those who are currently in the program or for those who are thinking about applying to the program, either this upcoming year, you know, fall of 2021, which sounds like it's a million years away, or, you know, many years down the road. Any final thoughts from our panelists?
I would say just, you know, for perspectives, like go for it. You know, it really is, you will be exposed to so much, and it is, you know, so important to be exposed to it. And that's something that I learned too, you know, is how important ethics and bioethics are, you know, in our healthcare system and what that means for the future. And then, you know, in that same vein, and, you know, particularly for the current students, you know, don't limit yourself. Don't think that you have to be limited. You know, there's so much that you can do with bioethics. There really is. You can go, you know, across the board. You can go to do so many different things, private hospitals, public hospitals. You know, you can go to nursing homes. You know, you can go to end of life facilities. You know, you can go be in academia, you know, and take that training into various other fields and promote that. You know, there's so much that you can do. So research, find out what you're interested in, you know, become involved, and just, you know, just go for it and make connections with the professors. All of the professors in the department, no matter if they're your favorite or not or whatever, you know, they are so valuable, you know, in more ways than you really realize. And they're such, you know, a wealth of knowledge, and they can really help you decide where you want to go and understand what you want to do. And then they can help you get there. You know, letters of rec are important. And they can help you do that. And so, you know, just access your resources and don't be afraid to access them.
So I feel like I have to say this now. I may have a favorite, but I did really love all of our professors. And so just to say this, you know, I like going here, and like what I would say that you guys who are here should do, keep your mind open. I think that there's a lot of intelligence in the department, and a lot of it can really almost rub off on you. It's contagious in this department. I think that if you are willing to take chances, you can really get far. I think one of the greatest things that you can learn from this program is how to advocate for people who need your help, and also how to advocate for yourself. And I think that those are invaluable skills. You literally can't, like, it's such a great thing when you walk away knowing how to help others and also how to help yourself. For those of you who are thinking to apply, I joke that if I could, I would do this program every 5 years. It's a lot of personal growth. You know, it's good for me. It's almost like, you know, a self-help retreat, but I can't because life just doesn't work that way. But I would really implore you that if you are going to do it with an open mind, because you will learn a lot. And you'll grow as a person. I know I've said this before. And also when I got to the point this year when I needed a mentor, I came right back to CASE, because that's just what our faculty is. Even though I'm no longer in the department every day, it's like almost like in spirit, I'm still there. You don't just, it's like, it becomes almost a family, like, and you can always just, you know, where home base is. And so it's not a lot of places that you'll get that. In fact, I can argue that you probably won't get that anywhere else, where you can leave and professors will still respond to your emails and texts and calls and stuff like that. I think that that's something to be said.
Yeah, I would second everything that they've said, and just enjoy the journey. This program will change your life. Even if you're like, no, it won't. I got it. We're good. It's going to change your life in some small way, some big way. I would argue it's going to change it in some big way. It will help whatever career path you decide to go down, you know. Look at all the three of us, and as well as Dr. Jeanette. It's helped us and has kind of become a cornerstone of our lives, right? You could go on and get a law degree and practice clinical ethics or health law. You can get a public health degree in addition to this and use it to help individuals on the ground. There's so many possibilities in healthcare, outside of healthcare. Just enjoy the journey. And I don't know how else to make that sound less corny, but it's incredible. And this program is unlike any other program I've personally seen in the country. We have a bioethics conference every year, and all the master's programs come out and advertise, and we walk around, Dr. Jen and I walk around all the tables and look, and I am incredibly biased, but I will still argue that I still think that our program has something incredible to offer because of the faculty relationships, because of those clinical rotations. The study abroad is also a really unique opportunity. If you didn't get to do that in undergrad, for me, I didn't get to do that in undergrad because I was busy in all my science classes. You can do it here, and you can go travel. And so I think just allow yourself to open your mind and walk in and see what happens, and you'll probably walk out a completely different person.
Well, now I want to do the program over again. Thank you so much to our panelists, to Reid, to Yanisha and Kaitlynn. This was wonderful. It was so great to hear your perspectives, how this program changed your lives, and set you on different career paths from each other and maybe from what you originally started out as. So thank you so much. Thank you to all our attendees. I just want to highlight for any of the attendees, if you are a current CASE student and you're thinking about doing the IGS, we're going to have an IGS open house on November 16th at 4 p.m. So we invite you to join us. And then on November 24th, we are going to have a webinar about the master's program, specifically focusing on our medicine, society, and culture concentration. So we hope that students that are interested or prospective students can join us for that as well. Again, to any of our attendees, if you have questions, whether about these future events, our program, or questions for our panelists, feel free to email us, bioethics@case.edu. We are happy to connect with you and possibly even connect you to our panelists. I'm sure they would love to talk to you more. So thank you so much to everyone. This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation.